I mean, everybody had to work together as a great crew, and everybody had a job. It didn't matter if you were supply or you were admin or you were medical. When you're in combat, everybody has a job and a role. And though I was a Marine Detachment executive officer, with my primary doing being the guard officer and the security of the ship, I had a collateral duty of being the 5-inch gun mount director officer. My CO, Captain Habel, also was a 5-inch gun mount director officer. The ship's lawyer was a 5-inch gun mount director officer in Sky 1, and the supply officer, one of the supply officers, was a 5-inch gun mount director officer, typically in Sky 2, though we kind of switch around a little bit at times. So everybody had a job. It didn't matter what your job was, your daily job was on the ship. When you went into combat mode, everybody had a position that they had to man when you were at general quarters, and everybody was at the alert.
Do you remember anyone special from your time with?
Well, probably the most special person I remember is my Marine CO, Captain Greg Habel, who I'm still very good friends with and stay in close contact with. He was a great Marine. Captain Bill, who was our captain during Desert Storm, was a tremendous captain. He was very demanding, hard-working guy. Really demanded the best out of everybody as they were on the ship. He really, both he and Captain Blesh, frankly, drilled us constantly so that we could get to general quarters in record time and be ready to fire. Our gunnery was outstanding. Our both 16-inch and 5-inch gun mount direct gunnery was phenomenal. So we all worked together. But I would say, Captain Habel, my Marine CO, and Captain Bill are frankly two people that I remember extremely well as being superb leaders.
Super. And you stayed in Marines, so talk about staying in the Marines and retiring. What did you retire as?
I retired as a lieutenant colonel. I stayed in the Marine Corps. I ended up doing 27 years in the Marine Corps. Filled a lot of different billets and assignments along the way, but really one of the highlights of my career was being the executive officer of the Marine Detachment on the Wisconsin, especially during Desert Shield and Desert Storm.
Where do you live now?
I live in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida.
Super. Now, I want you to talk about, when you did the CNC tour, you were talking about the description during the battle. So I want you to talk about that, and then the other humorous portions, we were talking about the chat. So why don't you just add those at your leisure?
Okay. Well, I'll probably start with the very first day that the war started. I was up in my general quarters station, Sky 4, and a helicopter came in and landed, and it offloaded some mail bags, and it offloaded some camera crews. And as I remember, I think they were from CNN and a few other news outlets that came on board the ship. And the Navy was transferring a few guys back to the United States, so they loaded on board the helicopter, and the helicopter took off. And as I watched the helicopter disappear over the horizon, Captain Bill came over the 1MC and basically said, "Hey, we're going to war tonight, and I know we're ready, but we're going to go to general quarters at midnight tonight, and we'll start launching Tomahawks soon after that." So there was a pretty heightened sense of alert during those hours, and the ship went to general quarters about midnight, and I was in Sky 4, and initially I saw around the horizon all of the rest of the ships that were out there as part of the task force in the Persian Gulf, and many of the cruisers and destroyers that had the vertical launch Tomahawk system on them were already starting to shoot Tomahawks. Wisconsin was strike warfare coordinator for the Tomahawk launch. Captain Bill was running that show. He was the task force commander for that, and he was directing the Tomahawk strikes for the entire surface element out there. And I noticed just Tomahawks going off all around us. We hadn't yet to fire, but it was a pretty spectacular sight to see, looking just out this black night and just seeing Tomahawks being launched all over the place. Finally, the Wisconsin got in the action, and the missile guys started launching Tomahawks, and the first few Tomahawks came from the deck, the mid deck there. Finally, they launched a couple Tomahawks from the aft ABL deck, and I was right above it. So when that Tomahawk went off, I was essentially basically looking up the tailpipe of the Tomahawk as it was going out of the launcher, and our Sky 4 just got filled with the Tomahawk smoke as it went off. But it was an incredible sight to see. Literally, you could almost reach out and touch the Tomahawk as it flew by my general quarter station. And it was a pretty interesting night watching those Tomahawks, especially as the Wisconsin launched them, because you'd see the Tomahawks launch, the engines kick in, and you could see that it was really dark that night. The water was extremely flat, clear, and you could see the reflection of the Tomahawk on the water as it was going out over the water, and then the burners would burn out, drop off, and the Tomahawk would just turn into black night again, and then the next Tomahawk would go and it would light up again, and you'd see this, and it was an incredible, almost surrealistic sight to see this whole event go on throughout that night. Over the next few days, we fired a lot of Tomahawks. Saw a lot of mines. We had to blow up a lot of mines because we were operating a pretty mine-infested area that the Iraqis had laid a lot of mines. And some Navy UDT guys, frogmen from some of the other ships would jump into the water and hook little explosives devices to the mines and blow them up. So that we, fortunately, we never hit one, but a couple other ships out there did attract a few mines and hit some mines. One night, probably a day or two after the war started, we had an inbound missile threat that was pretty intense, with going to general quarters, just like they simulate down in CEC now, with the general quarters, all hands man your battle stations. This is not a drill. Vampires inbound, and they started giving us, vectors and distance out to the target. As I was running out to my general quarter station, as I hit the hatch, opened the hatch, stepped out onto the deck to run aft to Sky 4, the chaff launcher started shooting off, and my nose and my eyes and my ears just got filled with the small metal shavings that the chaff is, which is to attract the missile and try to give it some misdirection so that it doesn't hit the ship. And I started to think, hey, I'm in the chaff cloud, and the chaff's all over me, and now this missile might be coming right at me. But I shook that thought off pretty quickly and raced as quickly as I could to my general quarter station, and got my general quarter station, and along with the sailors who were up in the general quarter station, we tried to immediately start looking to find the threat, and try to see what we could do about countering the threat.
When we were in C&C, we talked about that thing. You described your input to our presentation. Remember you mentioned
Well, one of the things I'll add on that was that there was one of the things that was brought up was about the small boats. There was a small boat incident that happened, and it was interesting because the guys on the RPV noticed a couple small boats trying to escape Falaka Island, and we saw them trying to escape Falaka Island, and they actually rolled in a few Navy fighter aircraft on them and blew them up, and took them out as they were trying to leave Falaka Island to get back to Iraq. But our RPV spotted it, and our RPV pilots actually called into the air guys, and they rolled in some fighters and killed them.
Super. Anything else you want to add before you wrap this up, before you walk around the ship? Anything else you want to add?